There are some 14,000 McDonald's in the U.S., and there are about 2,400 franchisees in the U.S. as well. And we operate 8 restaurants in the Dallas area, small towns outside Dallas, Corsicana to Greenville, Terrell, Waxahachie, towns of that size. We're the only McDonald's in the city, in the town. Actually, a good friend of mine, Neil Ashcraft, used to work with Gil Strickland and here at Marketplace Chaplains. I was on a business trip with him one time and asking what he was doing, and he told me about Marketplace Chaplains, and it struck a chord with me. So I investigated it and further, and things began to happen, and we actually had Neil, not Neil, but had Gil, excuse me, over with some people from Chaplains and some other McDonald's people, and wound up implementing it in several restaurants. We're in 8 restaurants. Some 300 people are touched by Marketplace Chaplains now. McDonald's has some 22 regional offices throughout the U.S., one's here in Dallas. But this is a individual decision by each owner-operator if they choose to embellish personnel relations, or that's a wide open field. In the workplace, things happen all the time throughout the day, and some needs are noticed and some needs are not noticed, or some employees express or share their thoughts or needs, and sometimes they don't. Just the mere presence of a chaplain in a restaurant to listen, primarily listen, to counsel, can make the difference between neglect or make the difference between real help. And in our case, restaurants, we don't have an on-premise HR team or management, and most of our managers themselves are quite young, and so they do not have the skill set in most cases to deal with life's problems, and so that really filled a need that was there in a professional sense that really couldn't be addressed with on-the-spot management. Most of our employees come from all walks of life. Hardworking, humble people, hardworking. We're ethnically diverse, Anglo, African American, Hispanic, and come from all walks of life. And so there are many things that go on that perhaps businessmen and women would not encounter in many job settings. So there can be things from an employee death, a family death, member's death, financial needs, cases even as severe as contemplating suicide, how to handle a child who has an issue at school, or an abusive husband, things that our people are not equipped to deal with. So from time to time, these issues surface more readily with a chaplain, and can be addressed or worked with as a counselor, as opposed to being bottled up and never addressed. We all have needs, and everybody likes a little bit of help. I don't know anybody who couldn't say that they never need help. And so on the first hand, providing help where help is needed, subtle help often. And on the other hand, when things are better at home or the workplace, things go smoothly. And as a businessman, it's prudent to see that things run as smooth as possible. Simply, it's more satisfying to customers to work with somebody who's content and more readily able to help, who's have their issues addressed. A business owner would know their marketplace, know their company, know their industry, and know their team. And by knowing their team, working with them, intuitively, one knows where the team is strong, where it needs some assistance, and I think that would be readily knowledgeable to someone considering Marketplace Chaplains, particularly if they have a heart for the Lord. They're going to be more inclined to consider it as opposed just to a mechanical program you plug in or call an 800 number. It's deeper than that. Well, I'll give you An example, just this past 2 weeks, we have a junior manager at one of the restaurants who got a call from another junior manager saying that her colleague was contemplating suicide. This is a young girl in her early 20s. So she called the chaplain, who happens to be she's a Hispanic, he's African American, he lives in a different city, but works at a particular restaurant, called him at night, told him what the phone call she got. He said, well, you better call 911. And she said, she questioned him. And he was firm, said, you need to call 911 for her sake and for your sake. Call 911, and she was admitted to an institution for help, and she's receiving help today. So that's one simple example of a phone call on a relationship that was built, and what resulted from that. I'd say some embraced, probably a small percentage. The others are probably indifferent and didn't know what to expect of it. And actually, I never pushed it as a spiritual or religious thing, simply saying, here are chaplains, just as you have a chaplain in the armed forces. Like a doctor, dentist, if you need them, call them. If you don't need it, don't call them. And they're going to be around talking to people, getting to know them, and perhaps they can help in ways that you don't know of. If you have a particular instance of needing help, give them a call and just tell them so-and-so needs a little conversation and perhaps some assistance, and you'll be fulfilling your job, and they'll take it from there. So we never really looked at it as we're pushing the envelope of spiritual things. In America, that's a little bit questionable today. It's not to me particularly, but I thought it would go over easier if we handled it in a low-key manner. I'd say on the whole, good. We have to continue to reinforce it with new people, and once a manager or assistant manager uses it and finds it works well, they're readily disposed, inclined to call again and involve the chaplain. Each restaurant has about 3 chaplains, usually a Hispanic, an Anglo, African American. Spanish speaking is very important. Probably half of our people today speak Spanish. So that's a big part of it as well. And they come in at different times, and even during rushes, it's sometimes they work by running beside somebody who's moving quickly, trying to handle a conversation. Yes, we have been pleased with the way they interact with our employees. We had to coach initially when a better time to be there so they could have some quality time to speak, and the responsibility of an employee while they were there. So, but it's worked out well. Yeah, our industry has high turnover, and so really continually reacquainting with employees on a routine basis is important. I would say that probably just word of mouth is our main avenue. Chaplain comes in with a name tag on their name, and simply introduces himself or herself, and about half the chaplains are ladies, and builds a friendship, and things start from there. So this is mentioned and covered in orientations. We have a 2-day orientation where we cover in depth personnel policies and procedures, and that's covered there as well. But the face-to-face is the main ingredient for getting to know each chaplain.